Right, time to do Chapter 17, Sticky Notes on Human Health. It's going to be a lot in this chapter that you don't need to worry about, so just kind of pay attention as we go along. Starting on page 464, this figure 17.1, leading causes of death in the world, super outdated from 2004, but the kind of order of leading causes is still the same. The number one cause of death in the world is cardiovascular disease, and the number two cause is infectious diseases. All right, so then you need to kind of understand different types of diseases. And so you've got infectious diseases are caused by pathogens. Chronic diseases slowly impair the organism. Acute diseases rapidly impair the organism. Keeping in mind that a disease is any impaired function of the body with a characteristic set of symptoms. So this next section, it's important to understand that risk factors differ from low-income and high-income countries. So in low-income countries, most of the risk factors are from poverty, unsafe drinking water, poor sanitation, malnutrition, whereas in high-income countries or areas, the risk factors are from tobacco use, obesity, inactivity, poor nutrition. So that plays a big difference in what kind of things you'll see in the different countries. All right, so for the next section, it goes over historically important infectious diseases as well as emergent infectious diseases. And so for these infectious diseases, what you're going to do instead of actually getting information from here is you're going to watch another Ed puzzle and fill out the disease chart. You can find this in Canvas. So this is a second part of your sticky notes that's very important that you do. Because these diseases are super, super important. The book does have extra that you don't need to know, but then the book also doesn't have some that you do need to know. All right, so make sure you do that. Okay, so then we get to page 472, the 5 categories of harmful chemicals: neurotoxins, carcinogens, teratogens, allergens, and endocrine disruptors, which we talked about endocrine disruptors before. What you need to do is you need to be able to know the effects of each one and then sources of each one. So like a source, a different example, an example for a neurotoxin would be lead. Source of that would be paint or gasoline or, old pipes, and those are neurotoxins. Okay, so go through here and just make a list of the effects and sources and examples. All right, so that includes all that. All right, so then on page 474 starts talking about dose response studies. Now, dose response study is a curve that describes the curve describes the effect on an organism or mortality rate in a population based on the dose of a particular toxin or drug. So the study is looking at trying to determine the appropriate dose of a particular toxin or drug on the effectiveness or lethality of this particular toxin or drug. So we'll be doing this a lot with the lab, but you do need to know how to determine LD50 based on a graph. So figure 17.16 shows that. Now the vocab you need to know for this section: threshold, which you'll see right here at the very bottom of page 474, LD50, ED50. You need to know and be able to indicate on a graph. And we'll be doing this on lab, but this is important for you to be able to do. So kind of read through and get the vocab. Now the rest of the part of this talks about how do they determine what's safe value for humans. So they determine the LD50 value that's safe for rats and mice. And then they take that number, whatever it is, and they divide it by 1,000. And then that is the number that is safe, a safe value for humans. So you will need to be able to calculate, do the math. So practice this, do the math down here. And you'll need to be able to calculate safe doses. Like if I tell you the LD50, of something is 2 milligrams per kilogram, and you need to tell me, well, how much, would be needed, what is the safe amount for humans, something like that. Okay. All right. So then we've got, talked about retrospective versus prospective studies, not on the test, but interesting information if you want to read it. Then it talks about routes of exposure. So how are the different ways that people are exposed to the different chemical risks? And this figure does a good job. Fetuses, babies, water, air, food, and soil. All right, then we're going to revisit something we've already talked about, bioaccumulation versus biomagnification. Make sure you know the difference between bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Bioaccumulation is within an individual. Biomagnification as it, builds up through the food chain. And so then knowing the effects and the human effects as well, and then the different examples here. All right, and then page 479 starts talking about risk analysis, which is very interesting information, but not on the test. And so that basically, no. And that finishes out the chapter. All right, so that's all you need to do. Make sure to do the diseases chart as well.